Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the week. So in the UK, cops got a call to do a welfare check on this 57-year-old man. When they got to his apartment, they found him dead, and it appeared he was there for a few days. So when they looked around, there was blood spatter throughout the kitchen and the bedroom, but seemingly no signs of a disturbance or a struggle or anything. They found him fully clothed. There didn't appear to be any signs of assault on the body. So of course you're like, well, what the hell happened, right? So as they're going through his house, they're trying to figure out what happened, and they stumble upon this pretty common scene, I would say, in the kitchen. He has one of those refrigerators where the freezer is on the bottom, so it's one of those drawers that opens. So the drawer is fully open, so the freezer at this point is fully thawed out, and they see 2 uncooked hamburgers, a knife, and a tea towel laying on the counter. So what do you think happened? I like how you say there was no assault except that he was stabbed, right?
Well, yeah.
In his stomach. Yeah, so I mean, besides the giant stab wounds in his stomach, but I mean, they did an investigation and they thought like, hey, he looks like he could have probably been standing up and using this knife trying to separate these frozen burgers, and just with enough force that he accidentally stabbed himself in the abdomen.
Oh my God. And you know what the most messed up part of this article is they kept referring to him as a loner. And I'm like, that's not cool. Like, this could have happened to anybody.
Yeah, they didn't really mention the blood spat. They did say there was blood all over. So I'm assuming that when they did the investigation, they were able to see that there was some kind of wound that was right there at the kitchen where the knife and the burgers were. And then it trailed into the bedroom where he eventually dropped and died in his bed, right?
Well, I was also saying no assault. Like, there's like not a lot of bruises like you typically see, like no defense.
No, I
wounds,
know. There
mean.
was like, yeah, like there was no signs of a struggle, you're saying. I know. It's just, I just thought that was funny, but they think it's not likely that he killed himself, although people definitely have killed themselves by stabbing themselves in the abdomen. But he didn't have a history of any kind of suicidal ideations, it doesn't seem, and the whole entire scene just played out like this was some kind of a freak accident, unfortunately.
Yeah, it sucks because I guess when they were doing the analysis, I think you said this earlier, like if you were to stand at the counter where his stab wound was the exact counter height, and he had limited motility in his one arm due to having a stroke beforehand, so they think that could have played a factor in it. It's just really sad because I could, I've definitely done
This happened
before.
like when, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, when I was opening that package, I slipped and almost cut my finger off. I mean, it happens for sure.
Well, yeah, and I've even had like loaves of bread I've been cutting, and gluten-free bread is like the worst, so it's always rock hard, and you're just trying to cut it, and you're like, I just want a little piece to have a snack right now. Why won't it cut? And you keep putting more force on the knife, and then shit happens like this. It's so sad.
It really is. It's such a freak thing.
No, definitely.
Okay, celebrity news.
So a new study has come out warning of the dangers associated with the popular celebrity pregnancy method, which is surrogacy.
Yeah, it seems like they're doing it a lot more and more. I mean, I don't know of any person in my life that has ever done anything like this. I'm sure people do, obviously. So it is definitely more popular among the celebrities for sure. And I feel like as time goes on, we are hearing about it more and more, like Paris Hilton, multiple Kardashians, anyone else that you could think of offhand that went to surrogacy for pregnancy.
Well, I know, yeah, I mean, this is super common in celebrity culture. I know one of the chicks from the Lady Gang used a surrogate because she couldn't conceive naturally on her own. So it seemed like the only practical way other than adoption. So I know they used a surrogate, and she had a really good experience. She's always talking about how awesome the experience was with her surrogate. I feel like a lot of celebrities are using them because, there's some people that have one baby naturally and they're like, this sucks. I don't want to be pregnant. And it costs, anywhere from like $75,000 to $200,000, depending on what surrogacy service you're using and everything. So I think they're like, F it, I have the money and that was horrible and I don't want to put my body through that again. And then they make up all these medical excuses as to why they can't. I mean, listen, I understand. Especially, I understand a lot for Paris Hilton too, because, she actually works like every single day of her life and does a lot of stuff, and it could seem trivial to a lot of people with regular jobs and that didn't grow up as being an heiress. But if you're running around every single day of your life doing photo shoots, podcasts, radio shows, events, blah, 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 making products, like, you don't feel like you have the time to be pregnant. And she was
I
also
don't
older when she had her kids, so
I don't think that I think that she said she got a surrogate though because of the abuse that she went through.
yeah, I mean, I was
And that to me is a more legitimate reason. I mean, listen, like, I'm sorry, but Paris Hilton doesn't work any harder than Nicole and Jemmy did when she was
no,
pregnant,
and
okay? Like, it's just like
I'm
bullshit.
not saying she works harder. I'm just saying I understand if you have the resources and you're working on that level, why you might choose that. But you also have to factor in, like you said, the trauma that she incurred, so, or whatever. I can't say the right word. The trauma that she had. So I don't know. I've been seeing it a lot. I think a lot of celebrities are using it for that reason, though, that they have one kid and they're like, "This fucking sucked. I don't want to go through it again. So I want to have 5 kids. So I'm just gonna have a bunch of kids like that." I know our girl Ilaria Baldwin used a surrogate at the same time she was pregnant. I don't know why they're on this mission to have so many children. I feel like when you reach a certain point, you're not giving your kids the
They
attention
they
they deserve and
just
need.
they're doing it for attention. That's it. They don't care about their kids getting attention because they need all the attention. So the reason that it's dangerous is that they've actually done research studies on this, and they take all of these stuff into consideration, like the person's age, and a lot of the study is showing that there's different socioeconomic things involved with it, like people that are from a lower income tend to be a surrogate because, like you said, you could get up to $200,000 or whatever. Like, that's a house for some
Oh
people. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So people take this risk, and oftentimes it's people that have already had babies. They might be a little bit older. They might have a history of obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, or things like that, which put them at an increased risk. And they found that there's actually been a 2.9% increased risk for surrogates versus a person not only that conceived naturally, but that had IVF as well. So there's something to it, you know what I mean? And a lot of it has to just do with their demographics.
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting. There definitely are normal people that do this out there, right? But we just hear about it more because of social media and with celebrity culture. You know who just had a baby via surrogate was Olivia Munn, who we reported had the hysterectomy and the double mastectomy from having the BRCA gene.
Yeah, I mean that's it's definitely perfect reasons for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking also recently about Selena Gomez said she can't carry her own children. This is awesome for people that are in positions like that, but it is interesting to see these
Ones that
studies.
don't want to get fat after
Yeah.
getting pregnant, I don't know, but what I guess whatever if you have the money, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of up to you if you want to do that. That's fine. I mean, there was this really high profile case from decades ago, though. I think it was in New Jersey, actually, where this surrogate carried the baby and then at the last minute decided, no, oh, never mind, I want to keep this baby. And then they had to go to the court and get custody of the kid. It was like this whole mess. And then it was temporarily banned in New Jersey
Well,
because of
wasn't
that.
it what I mean it wasn't it from IVF, it wasn't her kid, right?
Yeah, but
I
like, what
mean,
are you gonna do? If the
well, I
it's
mean, I just feel
kidnapping
like
essentially, but
yeah, it really is. It's
well,
funny.
I think
I mean,
now
it's not funny, but
well, when this happened, I believe it was the late 80s. So I have to imagine this was a completely brand new concept going on at this time, right? So they probably didn't have ironclad paperwork about how it was going to go down and everything, even though biologically it might have been through IVF. So I don't know. I think this is interesting, and I think now in celebrity culture and how popular it's getting, they have really good contracts going into this, so there can't be any kidnapping like with this woman in the 80s, and it's certainly interesting that studies are coming out about the long-term effects of it.
yeah, and then there's just also talk about, like, is this exploiting women who are poor essentially? I mean, it's kind of pregnancy can be high risk, and it could be deadly. You know that you could die from complications with pregnancy. So it's something to consider. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to carry this baby. Like, you're literally risking your life for another person.
Well, I can see how there's the question of if it's exploiting a certain demographic of women, but at the same time, nobody's forcing them to do it. They're making the choice themselves. So it's like,
Yeah, I get that, but like if you wanted to sell your kidney or something for money, you can't do that,
I don't know.
even if it was your choice.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I feel like if you want to do it, you should have the right to do it. But yeah, go from there. Let's get on to Chappell Roan. So Chappell Roan is a singer and songwriter. She's been in the spotlight more significantly for about the last year, but she has been making songs for about a decade, and Lucia is absolutely obsessed with her.
Well, Lily, and it doesn't she sing like HOT?
Yeah.
That song? Okay, that it's like stuck in my head all the time. So we have that funny video. We should show that of Lillian up to bat at the softball field. They were playing music and she's like dancing and like shaking her butt like at this, like it was just like really funny as she was up to bat.
Oh yeah, and that song's on a Target commercial right now too, so I just am hearing it a million times a
They
day.
play it on the organ at the Phillies game.
Oh yeah.
It's just like I can't get it out of my head. It's terrible.
But she's revealed that due to her rapid rise in fame, it's now stripped her of any sense of normalcy and has led to this diagnosis of severe depression.
Yeah, so she went to the doctor and they said that she had severe depression, and she was actually kind of shocked because she said that she had been having like brain fog and just kind of been out of it, but she wasn't really thinking that she was feeling sad. But really, when she started digging into it, she was just like it was kind of very sudden for her. And then she got kind of depressed about her old life, like things that she liked to do, like taking a hike or going and doing yoga or going to the thrift store even. Now she has to hire security to go do regular things. Like I 100% can understand this, really.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously getting backlash for saying this, but she's like, I went into this business because I like writing songs. I don't think she ever had a goal of being super famous. She also had an incident a couple of weeks ago with a photographer on the red carpet of the VMAs where I don't know exactly what went down, but I guess she was talking and they told her to shut the fuck up. And then she said, no, you shut the fuck up. And then started screaming at the person.
Good. That's awesome. I kind of like her for this.
Yeah. And of course, some people were like, oh, she's unstable. But it's like, try to be followed and harassed all day, every day of your life when you're in your mid-20s. I mean, really any, but especially when you're a young girl.
I just think it's the same as every other person that's living life. Some people like attention. There's people, you think about even when you're a kid and you have a talent show at your school. There's kids that love to go up on stage and play piano or do their thing. And then there's other kids that are in the corner and they hate it, even though they might like to play piano or something, you know? And it just might not be something you might become a celebrity and not even try to be, or even if you intentionally try to be, it's like you really never know how you're going to deal with it until you actually deal with it, you know? It seems like the Kardashians, they do a pretty good job with it as far as like none of them are complete drug addicts and going into mental institutions and things like that. But you could see people like Britney Spears, it's not good for her. You know what I mean? So I think it just depends on the personality, if you could deal with it and if you enjoy it or not.
Well, there's also this culture now with social media that if you're famous, that people think you like owe something to them because they support you. And I think before she was making a statement just saying like, please stop harassing me. Please stop calling out my mom and dad. I think there was an incident where somebody went to her house. Like, you don't have a right to just go to somebody's house. You as a normal person would not just walk up to some rando's house, right?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of her problems are with the paparazzi and they're just assholes. Everybody says it. And that's something that should be legally regulated, honestly, because nobody should be able to stalk and harass you like that. Even if just because you're a singer or you're a movie, that's just ridiculous. It's not appropriate. You would say if it was a regular person and some person was chasing them around like that, that would be terrible. That would be harassment. You feel like you'd be able to call the cops. Well, so why is it okay for them to do it? You know, it's weird.
This is also my really big problem with these celebrity sightseeing social media accounts, because we're getting to a point where like it started off as you see your favorite celebrity eating at a restaurant that you're at and you send a picture. And now I feel like people are just taking it one step further and just pushing the boundary and totally violating these people's spaces and taking pictures of them because they feel like they have a right to. They're also just totally fabricating stories about what they overheard at the dinner table or something they saw. I mean, you can write into these pages and be like, I saw so and so kissing somebody else and he's married, blah, blah, blah. You could write whatever you want. It's not fact checked. And then people take it as fact and roll with it.
Yeah, and I just think it sucks for people. I feel like it's haters that are just like, "Oh, you're rich and famous. Boo-hoo for you," kind of. But think about if you enjoy cooking, right? For example, and yeah, you have all the money in the world. You could just pay someone to go to the grocery store for you and stuff, but maybe you want to go to the grocery store and pick out the things that you want to cook, or you don't want to do everything online or trust someone else to be you. Especially the thrift store is a good example because that's something that people kind of like looking for a certain style of stuff. How do you do that? And it's kind of ridiculous if you want to go do something like that and have to bring security detail with you and have people watching you shop like that. Well, it's a lot, and you can't put that genie back in the bottle, kind of, you know?
Yeah, because even if she has this 15 seconds of or 15 minutes of fame, right? Like nobody's going to forget her right now, especially with the internet. Her face is going to be circulating forever, and she's going to be bothered for the rest of her life as long as she's recognizable by people. One thing that really stands out to me is a couple of years ago, we were in LA for some meetings we were doing, and we were having dinner, and the person we were having dinner with had a famous daughter and said that she had moved to another state instead of living in LA because in LA, she was being constantly harassed. People were always outside of the gate of her house. And when she moved across the country and went to another state, she was able to go to the grocery store and go to the mall and nobody would bother her because people just respected her there and her privacy.
Yeah, and I think that even around here, I mean the professional baseball players all live around us and they go to the grocery store and stuff, and if people see them, they'll just say, "Hey, can I get a picture with you?" and it's fine, but nobody really bothers them and changes their way of life. They could just be normal citizens kind of, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
maybe it's just not the same level of fame, but I mean, nobody really cares maybe who our baseball players are in another part of the country, but here they're very famous in our area, you know?
Yeah, but I think there is that level of respect. Like, you have to reel it back, especially when they're with their families. Like, these are normal people. Just leave them alone.
It's probably really interesting because you always see people that are celebrities walking around New York City and nobody really bothers them. Maybe it's kind of an East Coast thing that we're just like, yeah, we're not going to bother you. We'll leave you alone. But like in LA, it's just a different ball game, you know?
I mean, I'm even guilty. Like, I've run into celebrities, I've taken pictures with them and stuff, and I'm not gonna sit there and like yell at them or scream at them and be like, why did you say that? Blah blah blah. Like, I mean, even I'm at a point now where I'm like the most recent encounter I could think of is I was at 30 Rock a couple years ago and I ran into Seth Meyers in the lobby and I asked him for a picture. But I wasn't going to hold him up and hold his day up. And then afterwards, I'm like, I probably didn't need to take a picture with him.
It was probably, that's not even that expected though, because he wasn't really out in the wild. He was at his workplace.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? It's not like he was out to dinner with his wife and you interrupted and said, hey, can you?
Well, I would not. That's the thing. Like, he was walking, and then I felt like it was comfortable. If he was talking to anybody or, eating dinner with his wife, I would never bother somebody in a situation like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the mukbang. Fudging this.
It's the dumbest word.
It is the dumbest word. We were talking about this trend where you eat a lot of food in one sitting, usually on TikTok or in front of some live stream situation, and how unhealthy it was. So on the opposite end of that, we're going to talk about this influencer who's now been banned from TikTok after promoting disordered eating. They said it was violating their community guidelines because she was promoting being skinny and embracing thin culture.
Which I agree with, because there are young children who are influenced by a person who's just saying, don't eat any calories and stay this thin, and this is how you stay thin, and giving all these suggestions with links to Amazon and things like that. But on the same token, it needs to be, are these accounts banned from TikTok that are encouraging overeating and healthy at any size and all of that stuff?
Exactly. Like,
because it's the same thing.
If you're going to police it, you have to police everybody and both sides equally.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a fan of both of that because the children are just so the children
The children.
they're so influenced by what these people say, and if they think somebody's cool, they're just going to listen to whatever they have to say, and to tell anybody to do anything unhealthy with their body, either to gain too much weight or to gain a little weight or anything, do drugs, right? Which is going to be one of our another story we have coming up today. It's just it all should be banned, but unfortunately, a lot of people are getting around it, just not using keywords or something like that. I mean, this chick had like 700,000 followers before they decided to do something about it.
Yeah, and her so she had about 700,000 followers. People said that she was just glamorizing basically having an eating disorder and wanting to be thin. At one time in her bio, she had Save America from Obesity, one person at a time. She was having she had this subscription service that was called a skinny group community chat that you could subscribe to and talk about. When you went on her Amazon storefront, it was filled with, you know, weights, dietary supplements, all this stuff. And then whenever she would show what she was eating in a day, it was barely anything. So she obviously, if you want to do that for yourself, she's fighting back saying, this is how I want to promote my own health and everything. And that's fine, but it's not fine if you're suggesting other people do it too.
I think that when I was looking at the pictures of her, I mean, obviously, this is another thing too, that these pictures are so heavily filtered. She doesn't even look, her face doesn't look not normal, but it doesn't look natural. So you have to wonder if the rest of her body is altered with these filters too. It's just like, if you look at that person and think that that's what she looks like, even in real life, it's just completely it's such a distorted reality for children and teenagers to look at that shit.
Well, isn't the point of getting plastic surgery and doing stuff like this and eating dramatically and whatever to not use filters?
No, the filter thing is a mental disorder.
That's what I'm saying.
See people that we know even that they put these filters on their picture and you're just like, whoa, do they think that that's what they look like in real life, or they're trying to portray that?
And before somebody comes at me, I'm not just saying, obviously people get plastic surgery because they want to look good themselves. But the point I'm making is it's supposed to be this surgical Instagram filter, so to say. But I've noticed that everybody that gets these extreme plastic surgeries also are extremely face tuning themselves.
Yeah, it's because it's like a body dysmorphia thing.
Yeah, it's just never enough. And I'm actually surprised the argument, Bethany Frankel from Real Housewives of New York, she had this brand called Skinny Girl. Her first book was called Naturally Thin. I mean, she is always on TikTok criticizing other women in the Kardashians about promoting these unhealthy dietary habits and everything. And I'm like, your brand was literally called Skinny Girl and you wanted people to lose all this weight and you were embracing this really thin culture too. So zip it.
But where do you draw the line? Because if she and listen, I think that lady's fucking annoying. But if she wanted to make a drink line that was 0-calorie margaritas or whatever the hell it was, that what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it. It's the fact
that
she's criticizing other people for doing the same thing she's doing and not taking ownership of doing it herself.
Yeah,
it's
she sucks.
Get a life.
Freak accidents.
So a couple weeks ago, a 60-year-old woman was visiting Yellowstone National Park with her husband and their dog, who is leashed. So they were walking off trail in a thermal area near the Old Faithful geyser when suddenly she, quote, broke through a thin crust and slipped below the surface of the land. This caused her to come in contact with extremely scalding water and give her second and third degree burns on her leg.
It was 199 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than boiling water.
Oh,
imagine just dipping your legs in boiling water, hotter than boiling water. Yeah, so she had to get medevac to the hospital. Do they obviously I've never been there and I want to go there soon because it just looks so awesome. But do they recommend or even say not to walk off of the main trails?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they said, first of all, pets are not allowed in the thermal areas at all, even on the boardwalks. They said you have to stay on the hiking trails, especially, the closer you get to the geysers, especially, you have to stay on the trails. I mean, there are designated paths for a reason, people, and I'm sure there are signs everywhere you go.
And they were breaking multiple rules, and this is why. This isn't just going to happen to like you or I if we go there.
Well, no, and there has been. They said there was an eruption in recent years where it was not predicted, and it was where a boardwalk was. So there are incidents. This area. It's a natural disaster, right? So there are these.
Well, it's not. I wouldn't call it a
You
disaster.
know what I'm trying to say, though. It's a natural event. So they have these human-built boardwalk and paths going to these geysers, but that doesn't mean nothing's going on underneath the boardwalk. So there was an incident where there was an eruption where in a boardwalk area that did, go off, but luckily nobody got hurt. So that is a possibility. But they said there's signs everywhere that you have to use extreme caution, really be paying attention to what's going on around you. That's probably why they also advise you don't bring pets, because pets can run off and distract you and everything.
Or pets could just run off and get hurt if they run into that area because they don't know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They probably monitor the areas that they have designated as safe more frequently to just make sure that they're the safest to walk
exactly.
on,
But sometimes it's even with, we talked about that volcano eruption a couple years ago. Like there was no activity for all this time and they were taking tours in it and they weren't able to predict the one day it went off. And it killed people and it hurt a lot of other people.
I really want to go to the edge of a volcano. Not like that one that was where was that, New Zealand?
Yeah, I think so.
Not that one, not one like that, because that was more of a steam volcano, right? I want to see like hot lava in a volcano so bad.
I mean,
I would go on one of those tours that you can go to the edge.
I don't know how you want to do that after talking about some of the cases we have and seeing pictures of when stuff goes wrong.
Because it just looks so cool.
It looks cool, but what about a helicopter tour? Actually, I feel like that's more dangerous.
No, that's more dangerous to me. I wouldn't do that. I'd rather just hike to the top and like take the risk,
I don't know. Anyway, she was rushed to the hospital. She's now recovering, but it definitely sucks that she has to deal with
I'm sure
this.
she has to get, really severe second, third degree burns. She probably has to get lots of surgery, skin grafts.
It's terrible.
It is so horrible.
I know. All right. So in Italy, a 30-year-old woman was visiting Naples with her boyfriend. So you see this video of them walking around a street. They're just casually strolling around. They're carrying their suitcases. They were about to go home. So all of a sudden, they're just walking down the street when this statue fell 30 feet out of the sky, hit her in the head, knocked her unconscious, and eventually killed her.
Yeah, that's so sad. She was brought to the hospital and died. Obviously, blunt force trauma to the head. God knows how much that statue weighed, but even just dropping from 30 feet, even if it wasn't super heavy, it was... what are the chances of something like that happening?
So, yeah, exactly. So my first thought was like, being naive, like, oh, they're probably in this historic part of Italy.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
Hand-sculpted sculptures are just on the buildings. But no, it seems the cops think that a child threw it over the edge of the balcony in the apartments above.
Yeah.
So now the parents are being investigated. They claim they never saw that statue before. But why wouldn't anybody say that?
They probably didn't throw it if it was a statue, but maybe they pushed it by accident, even if they were playing around it or something. Or
yeah, so I guess they're investigating and they're gonna see if they're gonna charge them with manslaughter, but I don't know. They gotta figure out what happened. But it's really sad for this girl that this happened like this.
Yeah, didn't something like this happen? I don't know if we talked about it on Mother Knows Death or it was when we were doing the podcast in the gross room that another person was on vacation and a dog jumped out of, I don't know if it jumped out of the window or something.
We did talk about it on an early episode of Mother Knows Death. So I think a dog jumped over the balcony and then landed on a woman, a pregnant woman.
But she didn't die, right?
No, but I think the dog died.
Yeah, and then weren't they trying to, I don't remember what it was, but yeah, just, God, think about that. Just being somewhere and some huge thing falling on your head out of the blue like that.
Yeah, it's just absolutely nuts. Because there's literally nothing you could do to prevent it, as the person that gets struck with the object. But, okay, this one is nightmare for me. So, on a Scandinavian Airlines flight, a woman was served a meal by flight attendants, and then after she opened the lid, a live mouse jumped out and started running around on the plane.
All right, now I am okay. I understand that people were freaking out because a mouse is just gross, especially around food and everything like that, right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was a little extreme that they decided they needed an emergency landing. Do you think that's a little extreme?
So I was going to say, I do think that is a little extreme, but they actually have really good reasoning for why they made the emergency landing because they said, well, this is according to them. I don't know if this is factual. Seeing a mouse on a plane is kind of really rare. So they're saying if there's a mouse on the plane, it more than likely means that it chewed its way through the plane. So they're worried that it might have chewed through wires, which could either cause a short circuit, which would cause the plane to malfunction, or it could cause a fire. So that's why when they see a mouse, they just take every precaution and turn around and switch planes out because they have to inspect it and make sure the mouse didn't chew through anything important.
Yeah, I could see that, but really, is it that one little tiny mouse could do that much damage that it could make a plane crash? It just seems a little much.
Well, is it one of those? If you see one, then there's hundreds.
Yeah,
in the
it's it probably hitched a ride with someone or came in with who knows.
Listen, this is one of the few airplane stories we've covered where I'm like, I think they did the right thing by taking the extra precaution.
I just think that and I don't travel that much, right? But I don't really like when I do it, and especially the longest flight I've ever been on is to California, right? Which was only 5 hours or something. It's not long compared to some people I know have been on the plane forever. I just feel like it would be my worst nightmare to get halfway there, 3 hours into it, and then be like, we need to turn around or we need to land. I just would cry so bad. I would hate it. It's like the worst thing in the world is an emergency landing. And I think obviously if it's the door flew off and people are getting sucked out of the plane, that makes sense because I don't think you'd really be able to enjoy the rest of your trip.
But obviously,
but just stupid things like people, didn't someone poop on the plane and they turned it around, and people getting in fights on the plane and things like that. It just would.
Well, then
it happened to Laura.
On the
remember?
Plane. There was fecal matter leaking on the floor under everybody's feet.
But they couldn't have just squared off that one little section. I don't know. It just seems
a lot of biohazard.
No, remember when Laura was coming home from Florida and she had this really long trip, and then she got all the way on the plane, and then this guy, didn't he say something about a bomb or he said something?
He was just being
a douchebag. Yeah, he was being a douchebag, and then he wouldn't get off the plane, and then they made Laura and her whole family get off the plane, and then they had to wait hours to get on another plane and stuff. It was just a really terrible story. So anytime I hear that, I'm just like, oh God.
Oh my God. Tell us your plane nightmares, please, because I'm just so curious what happens that doesn't make the news.
Yeah, like when the guy jerked off in front of me and Andrea.
Oh
that
my
guy.
God, yeah.
Yeah, that was so nasty.
So
and that was the lady said to me, she was just like, listen, the flight's full, there's nowhere for you to sit, so either deal with it or I'll tell the pilot to land the plane. And then I was like, no, we wouldn't. Why would I do that to everyone on this plane? I'll just deal with this pervert jerking off next to me, I guess.
But let's say you wanted to take matters into your own hands and you're like, I'm going to scream at this man and embarrass him.
Well, Andrea kind of did. She tapped on him and she was like, you need to turn around right now.
I love that.
And Andrea's so little. She's 5 foot tall. She's like this little monster. Shit.
Incredible. This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, if you love Mother Knows Death podcast, you will love The Gross Room too. It basically goes along with our podcast, but not only tells these similar stories, but also shows photos, videos associated with these cases. We always are on top of the recent things that are happening in the news. This week, so I did a big high-profile death dissection on that surgeon we talked about a couple weeks ago that took out the patient's wrong organ, so took out a liver instead of a spleen. And I found the op notes, I found the pathology report, and I really went through step by step as to what happened and what this guy said he did versus what he really did. And it is shocking, to say the least. I show a lot of photos of autopsies open up to show you what these organs look like and just how they are on opposite sides of the body.
Yeah, and the discussion on that post is absolutely nuts because a lot of people in the gross room are medical professionals, so they also agree they don't understand how this could possibly happen. But
It's so nuts. It's so outrageous.
And the discussions are some of the best part of the gross room. You know, we get your guys' takes on stuff. We get personal experiences, what happened to you guys, and personal stories, and it's really awesome. So you can head over to thegrossroom.com for more info and to sign up for only $5.99 for the month.
Okay, true crime.
All right. So in India, a little girl was playing outside of her home and a man approached her and then lured her into this abandoned house. So as he's getting ready to sexually assault her, all of a sudden, these monkeys ran into the abandoned structure and started attacking him, helped her get away, and she was able to tell her parents, who alerted authorities.
How outrageous is this?
Yeah.
The whole story really makes me sick. My mom sent this to me last night, actually. They said on closed circuit TV they saw this guy that was luring this child in, and the kid told her dad that this guy told her that he was going to kill her dad.
Yeah, horrible.
Like, how gross is that? She's 6 years old. And how cool is it that monkeys are that developed that they realized that there was some kind of danger and went in and attacked this guy? It's kind of outrageous, right?
It's outrageous, but it's really amazing that they had that instinct that, you know, she was a little girl and needed help and they knew to go after him. It's mind-blowing to me.
I mean, they're really, really smart. And I think we've had stories of in other circumstances on this podcast where there's people that are living around these monkeys. They like rob people and stuff. Like they're smart. They know what's up. They trick one person to steal something from another person. They steal food from people. So even though they might not seem as intelligent as us, it certainly seems like there's something going on there. You know what I mean? It's really cool.
They're heroes. It's pretty nice.
In this case, they're definitely heroes. Sometimes they're criminals, but in this case, they're definitely heroes.
Definitely. So in Thailand, a man was arrested after a sting operation caught him giving unlicensed and botched penile enlargement treatments to people for 20 years.
So this guy was not a doctor. In fact, he had nothing more than a high school education. He only went to school till 9th grade. And he's been doing it for 20 years. And
wait. Yeah, how old is he, though? He's 34. He started doing this when he was 14 years old.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's making bank, though. I don't know the difference between the money there, but what's their money called? A baht or something like that?
I think a baht, but so he was charging them between 5,000 to 20,000 baht, which is equivalent to about 150 to 600 US dollars.
Which, like, listen, if he was doing a couple of those a week, that's a nice salary. And I don't even know if their money is equivalent over there. Like,
well, he said he only had 2 to 3 customers a month, so I don't really think he was cleaning up that much. But
he couldn't convince that many people. So this guy, the reason that this all came to light finally is because this guy got these implants and he got an infection because of it. And he said that he no longer could have an erection anymore because of this severe infection, and he's always in pain. So he finally, I guess, went to police, and then they unraveled this whole entire thing this guy had going on, which they said was not hygienic. They show pictures of it, and you're like, yeah, I wouldn't want to get any kind of thing injected in my penis there.
Yeah, and the best is he was getting all his clients via Facebook. So,
well, that's the thing, and it's like we talk about these algorithms picking up stuff, and it's just like, so. He only had, would you say, 2 to 3 people a month?
Yeah.
But like times 20 years is a lot, right? A fair number of people. How are you selling something like this on Facebook and it's not getting picked up?
Do you also find it funny that the person was willing to illegally obtain the injection, but then when it didn't go their way, then they were willing to turn him into police?
Well, yeah, I mean, that happens all the time.
Why alert authorities?
Exactly.
But he's been arrested. He's been charged with running a medical clinic without permission and working as a doctor without a license, and he is being held pending legal action. So don't get any procedures done that are booked via Facebook. Like, what are you doing?
Dude, it happened in Philly that there was this woman that was doing silicone butt injections at the airport.
Hotel, right?
At that hotel, and killed the lady. I mean, it happens all over the place. It's not just Thailand. It happens in America too, that people are doing some shady shit. And I'm sure there's a whole entire population of people who are injecting Botox and shit in people that aren't licensed to do
There
it.
100% is that
Yeah,
is
because you
that's
could
going on.
probably buy it on Amazon or some shit. Who knows?
Well, we have another story coming up later where you could so easily buy it on Amazon too. So we'll get into that later though. So this next one is one of my favorite topics to cover. So 36 years ago in 1988, a 25-year-old mom named Karen Taylor was killed. She had been stabbed 15 times throughout her chest, head, and neck area, and her 3-year-old daughter must have been home when this went down because her mom was trying to get a hold of her all day, and finally the child picked up the phone. Remember, this is 1988. So the child picked up the phone and said that her mother was sleeping and she couldn't wake her up. So imagine the mother's
no.
brain through this. Absolutely horrible. So the mom goes there, finds her dead. Next to her body was a cigarette, a bloody sweatshirt, and a check made out to a man named James Holloman. So they thought this James Holloman was connected to this case for all of this time, but they were never able to prove that he did it. So finally, with advancements in DNA, which is why this is one of my favorite stories to talk about, they scraped under her fingernails and found some male DNA, and then they took DNA from the sweatshirt and the cigarette. They were tailing him for a while. They waited for him to spit outside of his home. They collected that spit and they matched it up to the crime scene DNA, and it sure enough was him.
I'm just curious why it took so long.
I don't know.
Because obviously, I mean, I think that the in the 80s, when was it, 1988?
Yeah.
That was probably around the time when I'm not sure exactly what the technology was, but at the time of her death, they definitely collected something from under her fingernails. They had to, because how
they had
else are they
DNA from
clipped
the case.
Were they clipped? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they had it set aside, and obviously they weren't able to check it like they do now. But if they had a reason to believe that that was the guy because of that check that was there, why weren't they able to just test him even, 20 years ago or whenever, when the technology became available? Like, why did they have to wait to collect spit from him and stuff if they had this check that they had a connection with him? I would consider him to be a suspect at that point, right?
Yeah, I don't really know. I guess you just don't know what's going on in the police department. This was eventually considered a cold case. Maybe they didn't have the resources when DNA testing came available to test it. Like, I just don't know.
Like, maybe they ruled him out as a suspect, and then you're not allowed to just. I think that's the case. Like, you're not like just allowed to randomly test people.
No, but that's why they were tailing him and they had to wait for him to spit outside of his home. He wasn't willingly turning over his DNA to be tested because he knew he did it.
I understand that, but I feel like if you're a suspect, can't you make them do it if they're a suspect? If there's a probable cause to make them do that?
Well, I'm not sure if you're revisiting older cases and people.
I mean, it's still really cool how they figured this out.
Regardless, he's 65 years old. I think he was 29 when he committed this crime. So he lived his life. He didn't have a criminal record for the rest of his life. So maybe that also factored into it. You just don't know what goes on behind the scenes and what prevents stuff.
It's just like, it's so crazy to think. I mean, I just wonder who the people who he knows that he's been interacting with, that you just don't, this guy and you just don't even know that he killed somebody, stabbed somebody to death, and was like just getting away with it,
Well, this is kind of what happened with the Golden State Killer, too. I mean, he committed all of these crimes in the 70s and just went on and lived his life. He was married. He had daughters. He lived with his daughter, and she had no idea. And they were defending him until, they saw enough evidence that he actually did it.
Yeah. I mean,
their dad was in the early 70s.
It's just weird to think, because you think about that sometimes. Like, I feel like I know my dad really well, but then it's just like he had a whole entire life before I even came into the picture.
Exactly.
And then it's like, by the time you're 10 years old, you don't even really understand what's going on. So it's like, my dad was already like in his 40s when I first really started to get to know him. It's just interesting. Like, we talk to the girls about this all the time. They just ask questions and we're like, believe it or not, mommy and daddy were people before we were your parents. We did things and like, it's funny.
They definitely don't see life like that. But yeah, these DNA advancements are like my favorite. These are my absolute favorite things that we cover. I think they're so cool how they're able to revisit these cold cases and solve these crimes, especially when they started using GEDmatch and stuff and like going through these online databases. It's super cool.
Do you think that there's like this whole entire group of people that are just constantly shitting their pants because all of this stuff that they did, they thought they would never get in trouble for? I mean, like this guy pretty much thought he was out of the woods, right? At this point.
Yeah, you have to
And
be
then
after
like
36
people that are just like
years.
living in fear all the time that they're going to get in trouble for something because of this.
Well, it's not only crimes people are committing too, but it's like, who'd you have sex with 30 years ago that's gonna turn up having a kid now? Like, when's your kid from all this time
Yeah,
gonna turn up?
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like there's just lots of different scenarios, right?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty nuts. I mean, when I was at this bachelorette trip a couple months ago, nearly, I feel like everybody at the table knew of somebody that happened to, which is
Oh,
kind of
I
crazy.
do too. All right, let's get on to some medical news.
So at Tufts University, 50 student athletes participated in a 45-minute training exercise with a Navy SEAL trainee, and afterwards, 12 of them were sent to the hospital and diagnosed with a thing that you could say.
Rhabdomyolysis.
So what's it?
Rhabdomyolysis, yes. So, which just means, that's just the name of muscle cells, and it just means that they ruptured. So what happened in this case? So when you work out, right? The whole point is that you're stressing the muscle just enough for it to break, because then it could like build up again, and that's how they grow. But if you do it too much and you cause the muscles to rupture, then it could release toxins into the blood, which go through the kidneys. And if the kidneys can't get rid of those toxins fast enough, it could give you kidney damage, right? And this is something you wouldn't see right away. It could even be within a day or two of a really hard workout. But one of the biggest signs is that your pee turns a really weird color.
Like what
It's
color?
it's not bloody, but it's like a dark brown, like a tea color. It's just like a weird orangey tea-ish like color. It just doesn't look normal. So that's one of the signs. And then there's, you could have other symptoms too, obviously, like severe muscle pain and stuff like that. So when you go to the hospital, they can just give you IV for the most part. Like that's probably what they did with these guys. And they just want to flush all of the toxins, because when the muscle cells lyse, what happens is that those toxins are all released into the blood. So they want to push all of them out. But sometimes they even have to give a person dialysis if their kidneys stop working. So it's really scary. And it could just happen when you work out like too hard. And it might even happen to people and they don't even really realize it or have to get treatment for it because it's not so bad. But
Yeah, and they were saying this is especially unusual because they're lacrosse players and they're considered to be pretty physically fit. So it's just kind of
but
wild.
those Navy SEALs are on another level of of intensity.
Listen, I wouldn't do it, but some exercise people
I've
could be
listened
into
to
it.
I listened to a book of a former Navy SEAL and the experience of the training, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like you have to just be a certain kind of level of person to be able to deal with that.
Like I've been trying to just take a
I would
30-minute
cry.
walk every day, and that's impossible for me. So
Oh my God. I'm like doing physical therapy for my horrible joint problem I have going on. And like this guy has me like doing these like exercises right in front of him that are like barely even happening with no weight whatsoever. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die. Such a loser.
you're fine.
I'm like, seriously, I'm like a physical loser.
I too am a physical loser. All right, doctors in Russia are encouraging people to have sex at work amid a population crisis in the country.
Like, I don't know. Let's take a wild guess why people don't want to have kids there. I don't know.
That's exactly what I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't think people are feeling particularly horny during times of war.
Right.
So like
We're just like, oh, I really want my kid to grow up in this. Like, come on. I just think it's it's kind of ridiculous that they're just like, yeah, we're gonna pay for your breaks if you have sex and procreate. Like, it's just so outrageous.
It really is. And they were saying they have the perfect system for somebody to be a business professional and a mother with many children. I'm like, no country has a perfect system for people to have many children and work a full-time job. And apparently their full-time jobs over there seem to be 10 to 12-hour days.
Yeah, and you're just like, it's not the sex, the squeezing in of the sex is not the problem. That's not the problem at all.
Trust me, people are
Maybe
already
it's just
having
like,
sex.
yeah, exactly. Like, thanks for your permission, but this has been happening for a long time, right?
And they want you to start at 18 years old. They're like, start now, because in Russia, apparently the average Russian woman is having 1.5 children, and they're saying that they need at least 2.1. It's like, also, what's with the points? Round up or down?
I know.
So they need to have at least 2 to keep up with the population that they want to have. Or you could just stop going to war and keep the current population you have. I don't know.
But even before they were in war, I just don't think it's I don't know that much, so I don't want to say, but I just feel like it's kind of not the most ideal situation that you would want to live in. It's not like a great thing for some of the people that live there anyway, right?
I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, we're not living in, like, considerably, like, the most happy, best time ever in our lives. Like, I don't think a lot of people are,
like, really worldwide.
Yeah, like, it's
not even just there. You're just like, okay.
Yeah, it's not even specific to Russia. It's just like, the world kind of just sucks right now. Like, sorry that they don't want to get it on all the time and have kids right now. Sorry.
But thanks for the extra cigarette break every day.
Medical experts are chiming in on whether or not penises shrink with age, and what did they have to say?
I don't ever remember this being a discussion, but
Me
like, I
neither.
also don't own a penis, so maybe that's just like a thing that older guys talk about. But apparently they don't shrink with age. The only thing that is changing maybe is the engorgement or of their penis when they have an erection. So if it doesn't get hard enough, it doesn't seem like it's getting big enough, and that could be caused by all these different factors, but huge ones are cigarette smoking because it decreases the oxygenated blood that's getting to the penis. So that's a huge one. Diabetes, same thing. And a decrease in testosterone might also be a contributing factor. So it's not just the actual penis is shrinking. It just might appear like it's shrinking because more blood is not getting into it to fill it up.
Interesting. I'm glad there's so many studies on men's genitals.
I know, because I couldn't have lived another day without knowing this. But you know what's interesting?
And our primary female audience also couldn't live without knowing about it.
Meanwhile, you're just like, cool, like, I'm bent over with horrible period cramps, or I got this crazy postmenopausal or premenopausal, perimenopausal shit going on. But I'm glad that, like, we know this now. Thanks for wasting your time with this. You know what's interesting, though? They said that if you had more sex, that's actually, like, a person that has excessive sex is bad because that vigorous sex could cause scar tissue, which could also make the erections not as firm.
Okay, so there's a company called Galaxy Gas, and they have these whipped cream chargers. So they're intended for culinary purposes, like if you're making a sauce that you want to have a little whip to it, if you're making dessert, if you're making, just whipped cream for coffees and stuff, most higher end coffee shops. I would say Starbucks probably has this, and most restaurants have these things.
Yeah, because Starbucks, their whipped cream has that. It's not like can I say the brand? The good one with the red bottle, which is like the most heavenly whipped cream ever. It's not like Starbucks doesn't use that.
No.
They use it has like that weird waxy residue, which makes me think that they make it straight from like heavy whipping cream or something.
They do, because I've seen them use it. They have like the special canister, this thing.
Yeah.
They just put the liquid in, and then it makes it like instant whipped cream instead of at home. Normally, if people aren't aware, like if you were to make whipped cream from scratch at your house, you'd have to dump heavy cream in like a bowl or a KitchenAid or something and whip it at a fast speed for a couple of minutes to get
or
it
you
to
could
turn.
put it in a bell jar and just shake it, but we don't have the stamina to do that with our weak arm muscles.
Because, oh my God, no, that takes so long. But yeah,
I've done it because Do you remember during the pandemic, Lillian took this class on this website that did like online classes and she learned how to make butter, right?
Yeah.
And we put the heavy whipping cream in a bell jar and had to shake it until the point where it like clotted up, you know what I mean? And first it turns into like heavy cream and then or whipping cream and then it like clots up to make butter, right?
Yeah.
And then she put this butter stuff on a plate to show her teacher and she was like in front of the camera, like, look at my plate. And all of the juice from the butter dripped into my laptop and it instantly died. And my laptop was like 3 months old at the time, brand new, beautiful laptop. I lost everything that was on there that wasn't saved to the cloud and stuff. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember.
I was just like, oh, and you know, you don't want to yell at your kid for being like a moron, but I just was like, dude, come on. But
Anyway, it
anyway,
takes a while to make fresh whipped cream, and unless you want to be waiting like 15 minutes at Starbucks, it's just not practical. So they have these things. But the chargers are filled with nitrous oxide and are intended to help, what I just said, quickly transform any liquid ingredient into the whipped substance. And of course, teenagers are taking this can now to get high.
so you can just buy it like on a website?
Yeah, so I looked it up, and at first I thought it would only be available on certain food suppliers where you'd have to provide your EIN and everything to prove that you're a food-based business and why you'd be using it. But why would you do that when they just sell them on Amazon?
So this is the thing, because I saw that the company is upset about this, and they said that they were even stopping producing it for right now until they could figure something out. And that was my first thought, like, isn't there a way that the restaurant could just prove they're using it for the restaurant and not sell it to regular people? I mean, I just think it would cut down on it a lot.
No, it would. I mean, I don't know about their website in particular. I know with other food suppliers, you can't, like when I was baking a lot, and if I was ordering wholesale stuff off of certain websites, like even boxes sometimes, I'd have to prove that I had a registered food business. So
It is weird though, because I saw like you can purchase like formaldehyde on Amazon, and I just don't really know a reason. I mean, I guess people use it for certain things, painting or whatever. You could use it for all different sorts of things, but ultimately, is it worth selling it to everyone because of how bad it could be if people use it for nefarious reasons? You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, it shouldn't, like, in my opinion, it should not be available to an everyday person.
So it's they give it to you at the dentist most commonly, right? It's laughing gas. But when they give it to you at the dentist, it's nitrous oxide and it's mixed with oxygen, because nitrous oxide it's kind of the same exact thing as if you ever hear of like carbon monoxide poisoning or something. It's the same kind of theory that if when you breathe in oxygen, if you're breathing in something that's not oxygen, it could cause asphyxia, because now you have nitrogen on your blood cells that are going to all of your organs instead of oxygen, and you could have multi-system organ failure and death. And kids have died from doing whippets before. I mean, kids, when I was a teenager, kids did it from the normal whipped cream bottles that we used to get at the store.
Yeah, I mean, people still do it that way. And when I was in high school, the big thing was huffing, where people were taking like, the dust off cleaner and like spray
Oh,
paint
God.
cans and inhaling that. And I think some kid died. I mean, I'm sure other people died too, but I think the first known case of it died when I was in like ninth grade or something. And then everybody was freaking out. I remember that was always included in our drug seminars and everything moving forward. So kids are
Yeah,
always going to find a way to get high. Like, that's the thing.
I guess part of it that's disturbing is that, again, this is a TikTok trend, and so they're banning the use of these words on TikTok, but people are just, circumventing it and getting
Yeah, of
around it.
course.
So they're saying that there's millions of views with these videos, and what's happening on the videos? Like children or teenagers are showing people how to use them or whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
of course. Like we're even though the internet has been around for decades and we've had social media since the early 2000s, like we are still in the wild, wild west of social media uses and regulations and everything. And I'm sorry, but TikTok has enough AI to generate every possible hashtag. They're saying they're just changing letters out and then it's going through. Like, no, they have the technology to detect that type of stuff and block that as well.
yeah, I agree. I feel that way. You hear that with Instagram. There's like so much child pornography and this and that. And you're just like, Oh, well, they know how to block all my shit all the time. So
Exactly.
they figured that out. They can't figure out the whole child porn thing. I don't know. It's just like I don't buy it.
No, I don't either. It's
And
ridiculous.
that technology, I do this game in the grocery room every week called What Is It Wednesday, and I show 4 different cases, and you have to guess like what injury, how did the injury happen to the person, right? And like what was used to cause this injury, and it could be a natural injury too, but like what virus caused this or what surgery caused this, whatever. But I always put 3 real cases, and then I do a case that's fake, like special effects makeup. And the technology on Instagram and Facebook, it picks up a special effects makeup as like a real traumatic gore wound, and it has that special thing that says this image may be disturbing or whatever like that, censored. So it's like if it picks that kind of stuff up that's not even real, how is it not picking up a child that's using some kind of a device or showing a canister that looks like that or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. They're saying it to cover their ass, but they could probably be doing a little more too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Other death news.
So in Switzerland, a 64-year-old woman went to a woodland retreat. In my mind, I'm like, she's going to a spa, right? But no, she went to go use a suicide pod.
Have you ever heard of these before?
No, I haven't.
So it's just like a pod. It's, speaking of nitrous oxide, that's what it is. It's a pod that puts nitrous oxide into it, and it suffocates you to death, basically. It says that they start with 21% oxygen in the chamber, and then it plummets to 0.05%, and in less than 30 seconds, and then you end up, so the nitrogen takes over in your body, and they say that you pass out pretty quick, but it takes a total of 5 minutes for you to totally die.
Yeah, and it's, you have to go through like a psych evaluation before you're even allowed to go in. And then once you do go in, you have to press the button yourself inside of it to activate it. So it's not like somebody's doing it on the outside. But obviously, people are having a lot of issues with this.
I mean, listen, if the lady went in her garage and did the same thing with her car and just put a pipe from the exhaust into her car, it would be the same type of death, a carbon monoxide death. Like I said, it's kind of the same thing. So, like, why? It's kind of like the abortion issue to me. It's kind of like, why the fuck do you care what people are doing? If she wants to die, like, who cares? Why do you care?
Yeah, so they're saying active euthanasia is banned in Switzerland, but assisted dying is legal. So I guess this is kind of this weird in between, right? And the company that provided it is arguing that she died a really peaceful death in the woods and on her own accord. And the authorities don't really like this. They said they were alerted to it happening. They went there. They found her lifeless body in the pod. It must have been right after it happened, because how long are they leaving the body in the pod? They must take care of it right away.
I guess that comes up with some issues as far, because I was thinking that like when they took her body out, and so now that body would go to the medical examiner's office. Whatever though, like it's just like, listen, like if she wanted to do this, she was going to do it anyway. So instead of making it like painful or whatever, and just like she still did it.
Well, I
You're
guess
not going to stop somebody from wanting to do it. Why do people, how is it hurting other people? I don't understand.
I don't know.
It's like some Karen bullshit. Like I know that you, like I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right, but like also it's not my life. I don't care.
Yeah, it's just
Like,
kind of not your business. And she was suffering from chronic illness. And if this is the way she wanted to do it, like, I don't think I'd ever do something like that, but it's not my business. And
yeah.
I guess the problem is the authorities are saying that they warned them when they knew that these pods were invented, that they weren't going to be approved. And then they went ahead and used it anyway. So now they have criminal charges filed against everybody who was there on that day and
Yeah.
helped.
I mean,
but
I see that. Like if you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law, but like why? Like I don't know.
yeah,
I just like what is the reasoning? It's just very like controlling to me, you know?
it is bizarre, and it's just always this ethical question. I mean, we've talked about assisted suicide on here before. It's this ethical question of like, you might not do it and it might not be right for you. And obviously you'd be devastated if somebody you knew chose to do it, but it's not your business at the same time. And if they're going to take their own life anyway, why wouldn't you let them do it in a peaceful environment where they made the decision? I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. But let's get on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, we put up a story with a little question box, and you guys can ask us whatever you want. So first, if someone dies with contacts in, do you take them out?
No, I never have. If I could see what I need to see, which is I'll check the eyes and I look at the sclera, the white part of the eye, just to make sure it looks healthy and measure the pupils to make sure they're the same size and if they're dilated or not. And just eye color for documentation. If I could tell all of that stuff based on that, then I wouldn't have to touch them. I never came into a situation where I saw a person wearing any kind of crazy contacts that was covering their eye like that.
What if, like, I know you didn't really deal
I mean,
with,
the funeral director might do that. I don't know, but
I know you didn't really deal with alive patients, but what if you passed out or something at home and you were brought to the hospital and you had contacts in and then you were in the ER, do they look for stuff like that?
I don't know. The same thing could be said about like if you have a tampon in.
Yeah, well, I'm curious about that too.
You get in a terrible car accident and like your foot gets amputated or something. You go to the hospital and they're doing surgery on you and you have now it's like they bring you in the room and it's like, oh, you've had a tampon in for 15 hours. I don't know. Like that's something you have to ask a nurse that works at the hospital, you know?
Well, I am curious about that because what if you have further issues from toxic shock syndrome because nobody, like, don't you have to get scans and all this stuff? Like, I'm just curious.
I don't know. I don't know. I've never taken care of a person that was actually alive, so I don't know.
Well, let us know because I'm curious. All right. Number 2, how can you tell when somebody dies from a heat stroke?
So unfortunately, it's very difficult to tell. You just kind of have to go on circumstances a lot of the times because as far as gross findings, meaning like what we see at the autopsy, there's not always a clear-cut thing that would indicate that a person had hyperthermia. You know, when you have hyperthermia, it means that your body temperature has went too high and you had multi-organ failure and sometimes if a person is overheated, so for example, sometimes you could have hyperthermia when you have sepsis because it increases your temperature so much. And in those cases, we could see sometimes that the skin starts to decompose a little bit earlier than it normally would. It starts like slipping or like blistering up. But it's hard to tell because if you find a person that's outside that died, I want to bring up this case we did a few years ago in the grocery room. We did a high profile death dissection. Remember those hikers in California that died? And it was like a husband, a wife, a baby, and their dog.
Yeah.
But they were found, I think, a few days afterwards, and it was suspected that they all died from hyperthermia and also dehydration. But you just have to go on circumstances and rule out everything else. You didn't see any kind of trauma or anything and things like that. So it's kind of almost a diagnosis of exclusion rather than seeing these striking things that you could say, oh, there's a blood clot in the pulmonary artery. This means that this person had a pulmonary embolism or something like that. Like it's not that striking.
Interesting.
Unfortunately.
All right, last. What's your favorite food after a long session? I'm assuming recording session.
I'm about to order a smoothie bowl right now.
But what's your favorite
what you're
food?
asking.
Like, what do you crave when we get done recording?
Whatever, coffee, usually. You know what my favorite coffee is right now from Starbucks is, it's not even coffee. I get this pumpkin chai latte thing.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
With the pumpkin cream, but like I only could get it once a week because I think it's like 300 calories for the little one, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And then I get skim milk, but still, I feel so guilty drinking it.
Last week, they came out with this pecan latte that is truly so delicious. But
is that new? Like they never had it?
No, but it kind of tastes exactly like the chestnut one at Christmas time, which is why I think I really like it. But it's really good. I like it a lot. I mean, I told Mom I'm going to get it the other day, and she did not like it that much. I was offended.
Yeah, that chestnut, John. What is it? The
chestnut praline?
That's one that I have, like, again, we'll get that, like, on Black Friday when we go out.
Oh, yeah.
That's, like, and the eggnog latte.
They don't have the eggnog latte anymore. They got rid of that last year.
Well, we can make that ourselves.
Yeah.
But now, but Still, they're so high calorie. I'll have like one and that's it. I can't. The eggnog one, I think a grande was like 600 plus calories for one drink.
Okay, yesterday
That's so outrageous.
I went to when I drove all the way to your house.
Well, check in with me in the morning. My mind changes often.
All right, so
I told you to come in. I told you that that you could have came and hung out for 2 hours, but I had to go get my nails done. I'm sorry.
why would I do that when I could work all day on my couch and watch Gilmore Girls on a perfect fall, cloudy, 70-degree day? Anyway, on my way over to your house, I went to Tim Hortons and they have this like maple cold brew thing, and I never get cold brew because it always gives me horrible jitters, but I really wanted the maple flavor and I didn't feel like putzing around and trying to figure out like how am I going to get the maple flavor in a different drink, whatever, because the lady was rushing me on the intercom. So I get it, and it was like kind of gross, but I was like, I bought it, so I'm just going to drink it anyway. And this is at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So by 2 o'clock, I feel like I'm shaking like horribly. I hate cold brew. It gives me horrible jitters. But then I go on the app later and I see it was 500 calories.
Yes,
that's like, what?
That's like a whole. That should be like how much you eat for like lunch.
I know.
Like a whole meal.
I never would have ordered it if I knew it was that much. And it probably says it on the board, but I was rushing and I wasn't looking around. But I don't recommend that one, even though their pumpkin latte is good, which...
The board, that's not like countrywide, right? The calories listed on everything, or is it?
I don't think
that
it's
kind of like
everywhere in the
ruins
country.
eating out.
That's how I
honestly
feel. Because especially, like, for example, tonight I'm going to order Chinese food for dinner. And, like, I don't want to know what it is. I just want to eat
I'll
it.
tell you.
I know it's not good, but I want to enjoy it. And I just want to eat and not worry about it.
This one day I made a really good recipe for it was some Chinese stir fry thing, right? And the amount of shit that I put in it, it was like honey, sugar, like a lot.
Yeah.
It was like a lot. And I thought, oh my God. And it tasted exactly like something you would get at the mall, like it's a Chinese place. And I was like, oh fuck, like this is like it's once in a while, it's fine. But I'm like, okay, this is the level. There was like melted butter and shit. It was like outrageous, like how much the sauce was. And I thought, okay, and it's good. It's totally fine to have that once in a while, but you don't even really think about it because you're just like, oh, it's just chicken and broccoli. It's, that's it. Those meals are probably over 1,000 calories. Like, I'm not lying, with the rice and everything.
Yeah, like, I don't want to know.
Sure. Are we going to get banned for talking about food?
Probably.
Being too many calories? I feel like this is a normal situation. We're not encouraging not eating or eating too much, just healthy eating or smart eating, I should say.
Yeah, like it's all about balance. Like for me, when we're done recording, we usually record in the late morning, early afternoon. So usually I want lunch. So today I made this very healthy vegetable soup I had a pretty healthy breakfast. And then afterwards, I made a cast iron skillet cookie last night. I'll eat that and then go get a coffee. It's all about balance.
This is not balance. This is like just how to be a fat ass, but not too much of a fat ass. That's all it is. Don't like people that like legitimately eat healthy are going to be like, wait a second, like you're saying because you made a brownie skillet and you split it over 2 days, like that's healthy eating or good.
Listen, I'm pretty good about eating really well balanced meals and eating healthy most of the time, but like because I have my period, sorry, I just need to eat junk food for a couple days. Get over it. I'm really good every other day. You can't be perfect every day of your life when you're trying to plan meals and eat. It's impossible.
Okay, but
that's that. Don't forget to submit a story for 6 shocking stories. If you haven't listened to this week's episode, we have a special personalized 7th story this week because you did something extra hilarious that I'm not going to spoil people to go back and listen.
It's everyone else's problem, not my problem.
I don't know. Everybody thinks it's pretty funny, so. And I certainly thought it was hilarious, but definitely check that out. And don't forget to submit your stories. It could be something that personally happened to you or just even something you saw in the news. We like hearing it all.
Yeah, and don't forget to leave us a review if you enjoy this podcast, please.
Yes. So we will see you guys next week. Hope you have a good weekend.
See ya. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death.
As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.